Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, Goody. Hall is going to try to join us here. He's on daddy duty this evening, so hopefully he's able to pop his head in a little bit just to give you guys a heads up. The title of tonight's episode is The Ghost Game, and the reason why it's called The Ghost Game is it feels like we just had a bunch of ghosts on defense on Sunday evening going against the Lions. And to be able to help us break down that game, the 44-22 loss to Detroit, is none other than Mr. Nick Akridge from Pro Football Focus. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday, sir. How are you doing? Of course, brother. I think your internet's cracking up, or maybe you muted yourself. But regardless, Nick, I gotta ask you, in regards to PFF, what were the highest grades? Who performed the best against the Lions, and what were the lowest grades?
Yeah, it was all offense. I hope you can still hear me, but
Yeah.
it was all offense. I think I posted something that said there was one player that played at least 10 snaps that had a higher grade than 75 on defense, and that was Jacob Martin, or higher grade than 70 basically. So yeah, it was all offense. Laramie Tunsil, Marcus Mariota, both right around the 80s. Traylon Burks, a 79.1, Zachary 77.4. So yeah, all offense. Offense was good, but yeah, defense was, as you can tell, not very good.
No, I think anybody that's not blind
Yeah.
could even honestly, you could have even been blind, just listen to the broadcast. You probably even know that. But that being said, with Marcus Mariota, is your confidence growing with Marcus Mariota this season? Because it kind of started out shaky. He hasn't learned from his hurdling. He still attempts to jump over defenders for some reason. It's mind-boggling, but I respect the confidence. But is your confidence growing with Mariota heading into this matchup this week?
Yeah, I've never had a problem with Marcus. I think he's a very, very good. I think he's the best backup in the NFL. I think he fits this offense perfectly. I think he's a great tool to use in the run game. When he isn't trying to hurdle people, like you said, that is a problem. He needs to stop doing that. But yeah, no, I've had no problem with him. I think he's played really well. I think the stats don't really kind of tell this whole story of how he's played. I know in the Atlanta game, he had three incredible throws that were taken back from offensive penalties. So his grades look really good. And I think that he's more than capable to kind of steer the rest of the ship for the rest of the season.
Yeah, like as crazy as it is, the offense still was only 2 of 10 on third down. Like it's crazy that stat given them only putting up 22 points, and you look at it and say they weren't even the worst unit on the field, which is it's crazy to even say, Nick. But Goody, do you have a question for Nick?
Yeah, just curious, with the team being depleted as it is, as a coaching staff, as a front office, when you're in this position, what do you think that the evaluation process is for the players that are playing? Are they looking at roster-wise, top to bottom? Is it specifically offense, specifically defense, or are they like do you think their view is right now?
Yeah, I think at this point, when you're kind of in a season that's pretty much lost, and we've unfortunately been here many times before outside of last year. But you're really just kind of looking at who's going to step up, who's going to continue to play as hard as they can. When the season's pretty much lost at this point, wins don't really matter in the end right now. And so really what you're looking for is people to do their job basically. And right now that has been the absolute hardest thing for this defense, is to just simply do their job. They are struggling mightily with it. So I think, as everyone's kind of pointed out, it's time to get, the young guys as much run as possible and see what you got with them. There's no better kind of experience than playing, even with the rest of their roster kind of depleted. You just got to get them out there, let them get some reps, learn, make mistakes, and just kind of go from there.
I wanted to ask you this because the big news yesterday was that Dan Quinn has taken over the play calls on defense, which is I know that he's sticking up for his guy, and he's not going to fire him right now. There's no reason to. The big question that this follow-up wasn't asked, Nick, but I would love to know the answer to what Joe Witt's going to be doing now, based on his history with DBs, I would imagine that's an area that with losing of Trey Amos getting put on the reserve injured list, losing Marshawn Lattimore last week, I would imagine with a depleted cornerback group that maybe Joe Witt can help in a personnel kind of way there. But what kind of changes do you think Dan Quinn is going to be implementing in, if any, this week calling the plays?
Yeah, I think, and I hope that it's just kind of more just sound football. Like there were a lot of instances this past game where it's just unsound defense, where they don't have the numbers, just not getting lined up properly. I saw a lot of guys with palms up in the air, which is never a good sign on defense. So my hope with Quinn getting the play calls is that we're just going to have a more sound defense, and you hopefully don't see as many backbreaking mistakes, because that's what they've been struggling with this whole year. It's I've never really had a huge problem with some of the calls that Joe Witt was making. I think a lot of them made sense. This past week I had a little bit of problems with it, but the players out there were just making just constant mistakes on some pretty easy stuff. I mean, if the Lions were in any sort of play action, they had no chance of stopping it. Just busts everywhere. Can't play man coverage. So it was a tough spot for Joe Witt to be in. I think there definitely needed to be some sort of just change in voice and hope that Quinn can just get them aligned right. Which, when you're talking about an NFL defense, seems pretty bad. But that's kind of where we're at this point.
In week 10, to boot, right? Or week 11. What is it? Yeah, it's week 11, right?
Yep, about to be a week 11.
It goes so fast. It goes so fast.
And you're flying to Spain trying to figure all this out too. It's just I don't know how they get it turned around. But good luck, Dan.
Well, if they needed any horror movie recommendations, I would just put on the film against Detroit for that whole flight ride. I think that's why they all looked very tired when they got off. Goody, do you have another question for Nick by any chance?
At the moment, I do not.
Oh, you're good. So I wanted to ask you this. With the defense losing Trey Amos, with Marshawn Lattimore, corner's is a little shaky at this point. We saw Noah Igbinoghene get more reps against the Lions. But given that circumstance, do you think that Mikey's going to be used on the outside more and Jonathan Jones on the other side with Noah in the slot? Or do you think they're going to still have Mikey primarily in the slot?
I don't know if you have much of a choice anymore.
Right.
With Amos going down, I think you have to put those two outside with, like you said, Noah in the slot. And he was in the slot last year, and he played fine. Like, he wasn't great, but he was serviceable there. And we know how good Mikey was on the outside. So, again, just hoping that we just kind of get back to a spot where it's, I'm not expecting them to hold a team to under 20 points. I'm just expecting them to get a stop, and they didn't get a single stop last week until the end of the game, where the clock hit 0. That's the only stop they got. It's been bad. Like, it's just so bad.
One of the things look, I was a big Jalen Lane fan heading into the draft. I was very happy when we plucked him, right? And Jalen Lane is one of the people that the fan base has been kind of talking down on ever since the kick return, 2 of the kick return gaffes that he's had. But, like, my whole kind of point with Jalen Lane is he had the big catch, of course, and you want more of it, right? But it's not like the defense is giving the opportunity for a punt return the last couple weeks, dude. I mean, we have literally been just getting ran over. We've been a doormat for the past month, and it's honestly insane. And I can't even think of one player that you could pluck from any NFL team that would fix any issues.
A pass rusher. I think they've needed a pass rusher ever since he got here, and they just haven't had it, and they've had to put themselves in it just puts their secondary in really tough spots, and you saw it a lot of times last year. If they're not getting pressure, if they're not getting home, you're going to see a large chunk. That's just kind of how this defense operates. It's why it was so good with him in Dallas, is because they had a guy like Micah Parsons who can solve a lot of the problems. They don't have that. And in my opinion, his style of defense, it just doesn't work without that sort of pass rusher or a very good secondary. You just think of any of his teams that he's had. Obviously, the Legion of Boom in Seattle, like, you had that, but you need it doesn't work in today's NFL to have this style of defense anymore, unless again you have that sort of premier pass rusher that they have never really had. I mean, the last guy that you can actually think of that was, feared on the edge was Ryan Kerrigan, and it's been a very, very long time since they've had something like that. It's why I was kind of shocked they didn't go that route in the draft, but that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, and I have this question written down, and it's hard to say at this point, but what's the more depleted unit, wide receiver or corner?
It's still receiver. We're gonna watch Robbie Chosen and Chris Moore in Madrid at 9 a.m. on Sunday. So it's wide
That's tough.
receiver. It's always tough when you have these injuries that just keep going to one unit. I mean, it's rough right now.
Yeah, very rough. And I wish we could have just seen a little bit more of Luke, and
Yep.
hopefully he's able to get well and get back here quickly. But one of the talking points on X is the blame pie. Because whenever you have a stretch like this, it's very rarely that people are going to be still smiling and happy about the team, positive about what's going on. And look, the team doesn't really deserve that at this point. It's been embarrassing. But in the blame pie overall, out of 100% of it, Nick, where do you put the blame for where this season has gone?
Uh, I'd say about I I'm trying to think of how big I want the defense to be. I'd say
Add Dan Quinn and AP as a category.
okay. I'd say 50% defense.
Okay.
Let's go. I'm adding injuries into there as well. I think injuries play a big part. 20% into the injuries. What's that? 70.
Yep.
10% to the offense. I think the offense has taken a bit of a step back. But I think that it looks a lot worse than it actually is because the defense is so bad. They have to play absolutely perfect, which they did last year. And so that's why it seems like it's taken a bit of a step back. I'm at 80% now. I'll go 5-5 to AP and Quinn. I think Coach Quinn's taken a little bit too long of a time to kind of really fix something with this defense. It's been just 4 consecutive games of just complete and just utter domination from the opposing offenses. And then I just wasn't a huge fan of the draft from AP. I haven't really been a big fan of the draft, both this year and last year. Obviously, you hit with Jaden Daniels, so that solves a lot of the problems. But you can't really tell the whole story of a draft class for another year or two. But right now, it's not looking too great. Like I already kind of touched on it. I was not a huge fan of the Connerly pick. I think he is kind of slowly turning it around, and he had his best game this last week, so that's
Yeah.
that's encouraging. But it just seems more of a luxury pick when you didn't really need to kind of go that route, especially putting him in a position he hasn't played, and we've kind of seen how that's taken some time for him to get used to it, and yeah, and you're just missing a lot of positions, and so yeah, that's kind of where my blame goes. I think that's 100%.
Well, let me ask you this to bounce off of that. You know, I've heard other fans talk about this where it's like, well, Dan Quinn is a defensive minded head coach, right? So how much of this is Dan Quinn's kind of defense already? And I think Dan Quinn already alluded to this in one of his pressers, saying that he helps with the defense. They talk in the headset. They talk about things so it's going to be rolled out. Not saying that he okays it, but I guess that he puts in his kind of opinion, which would make sense why he took so long to kind of get it going. But with Joe Witt, I know you said that you don't really blame him for some of the stuff that he was calling. Some stuff is, but like, it just makes sense that the play calling had to be taken away. Like, what is the next domino for the defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny when you kind of see this cycle of coaches who are struggling. They move to the booth, or they move from the booth to the field, or to the field to the booth, and that's the first domino. And the next domino is somebody else takes the play calling, and then the next domino is they lose their job. That's kind of where we're going at this point. I don't know if they're going to fire him in season. I think taking the play calling away from him is essentially like firing him from his job.
The
So
demotion.
yeah, so I don't really see a lot more change from there. I'm just hoping that again just gets back to some level of competence, and it gets tougher each week because there's another season-ending injury every single week it appears. But yeah, it's just tough. I just want them to get back to just competency.
And then last one, before Goody asks you one, I think I've given him enough time, but the running game offensively. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt obviously was their leading rusher with only 30 yards on Sunday. I know a lot of that has to do with the score being down early, just getting bludgeoned to death all the way down the field. But like as of late, what is going on with running of the football? The offensive line is one of the most healthiest units on the field right now. Knock on wood. Why isn't that? Why isn't the running game transpiring? Why is it not flourishing right now like it was early on?
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, the start of the season, it was literally the best in the NFL. And then prior to going into that Chicago game, it was the best in the NFL. And I wrote going into the Chicago game, this should be a pretty easy kind of recipe for success. You run the ball against one of the worst run defenses. And from that point forward, they've just kind of taken a huge step back, whether it's teams loading the box and they haven't had the opportunities to kind of really run the ball, but they've also had a lot of mental mistakes on the offensive line. You see a lot of free guys running through, a lot of missed blocks there. And that's kind of really been the problem. There's been some times where Bill has taken probably some wrong cuts here and there, just trying to get a little too shifty too quickly instead of just kind of hitting the hole straight ahead. They started off running the ball pretty well on Sunday, but like you said, once you get down by 21, it's run game just doesn't really even matter at that point. So yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. But whenever Mariota's in there, it does kind of seem to be a little bit better. The run game, that is.
I got you. Goody, do you have one cooked up?
So yeah, just something kind of general, but when a team is coming off of a year that they had, it was all new faces. Everybody was new together. It was the first time they were kind of setting out on this one mission. And then fast forward to this year in present time where things are starting to fall apart. And considering the contracts for a lot of these players are pretty short, right? There's not a lot of long-term commitment on this roster. Where do you think the work for Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have to restart in terms of addressing these problems, considering the people that may be leaving, all the injuries, who's going to be actually available? Do they have to restart? Or are we still able to just kind of put into where we need more?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's tough, man. They've put themselves in a spot where kind of going all in on these veteran guys, these kind of like you said, 1 year, 2 years stopgaps is you had to hit in the draft behind them. And like I said, we kind of don't really know just yet. We have an idea of where players are trending, and it's not trending too great right now. But you kind of never know what's going to happen. And really, they just need draft picks, and they don't really have it. I don't blame. I know a lot of people are blaming Adam Peters for kind of trying to go all in, but I don't really blame him. You can't really plan for a complete decimation of injuries. Like you can't plan for that. I don't blame him for going all in for Lattimore last year. You kind of had to do it. Almost worked. They almost made the Super Bowl. Don't blame him for the Tunsil trade. I think that was a huge piece. I really liked it. He's been playing fantastic. I don't blame him for going all in. They just haven't had enough draft picks, and they don't really have enough in the future right now. So my kind of hope is this season's lost. I'm just kind of hoping they really just lose out at this point.
No.
Get as high of a draft pick. I know you don't want to hear it. No one really wants to hear it, but lose out at this point. Get as high of a draft pick as you can. Trade that. And you just got to restock with the draft pick. So to kind of answer your question, I think they do need to retool. I think there's a lot that needs to be done with this roster. I said that last year and kind of going into the season when you kind of put it all in on these veterans, if they start to decline, which they have declined rapidly, you kind of see what you have right now, and the depth is really lacking. You've got some young guys that are intriguing, but there's not a lot of depth there. It's why you keep seeing people getting picked up off the streets every single week and having to play significant time. So they got a lot. They got a lot to do this next offseason with really not a lot of draft picks. They should have a decent amount of money, but not a lot of draft picks.
All right, Nick.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you under the light here. To wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you. But you, a lot like Kurt Warner, have said that Jaden has not performed up to what his usual standard was last season. So I wanted to give you the stage here and just kind of break that down, because how dare you?
I know. How dare I say anything mean about our stud quarterback? This does not mean that I think that he is a bust. This does not mean that I think that they drafted the wrong guy. I was a Drake May guy. I was very open about being a Drake May guy before the draft. I don't think that that really changes for me right now. The only thing that changes is I think that you have a choice between Drake May and Jaden going one if you're the Bears, and then two for the other guy. I think they're both going to be absolute studs in the NFL for the rest of their careers. That being said, Jaden is very much a rhythm passer. It takes him a little bit of time to get into a rhythm. We've seen it a lot throughout last season. It took him a few games to get into a rhythm to kind of really kind of break out. And even in those games later in the season, it takes him a little bit of time. I put out a stat in the first quarter, his grade is in the 70s through all of last year. From there, that point on, second to the fourth quarter, it's in the 90s. It takes him a little bit of time to get going. It always has. So when you deal with these level of injuries that he's had, he's just never had time to get into a rhythm. So that's a bit of a caveat that you need to add when you're talking about Jaden's second year. That being said, again, it has not been great. Like this is not the Jaden that we saw last year. The accuracy has been a huge problem. He's one of from our metrics, he's one of the least accurate quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And the things that Kurt Warner was talking about, he only used the Seattle game. He says it was a problem throughout the year, and it's something that I've seen as well. He's not taking the throws that he took all of the time last year. Those middle of the field throws in between zones that people said was a struggle. I was one of them that said that that was kind of a struggle for him in college. But last year, he was lights out over the middle of the field, one of the best passers over the middle of the field. And this year it's taken a bit of a step back. He's missing some guys right now. And again, I'm as the fan in me, I'm chalking that up to he's out of rhythm. It's taken some time for him to get back into rhythm. There's guys that he doesn't really trust. I get all of that. But if you're just looking at it from last year to this year, it's a pretty big step back.
Look, and of course there's excuses attributed to it, right? Obviously the knee could play into the accuracy, the footwork, obviously being able to plant, get that ball out. That plays into it. But like coming off of last season, one thing that I kept thinking was, how the heck can this kid get better? Like the way that he is operating this offense, it's alien like. So like the fact that he not had taken a step back, but not playing up to his normal, like I would say that's normal. Like that he's actually human, and that's okay. You know?
I agree. I think to expect him to duplicate what he did last year was just asking way too much. And it's his fault for putting those level of expectations. That's how good he was. Like that's how good he was last year. He was sensational. So to try to repeat that was always going to be tough with a tougher schedule, all these kind of these moving parts. And so yeah, I think it's been a step back. I think it sucks that the injuries keep derailing it. And I think if you really want to point to anything, that's the biggest thing that we've got to look for next year is, these injuries are really starting to pile up. And I need him to get reps. That's what I need him to get. So I've kind of gone back and forth of, if he's healthy, do you bring him back or do you not? Because reps matter for him. But at the same time, I don't want to see him keep getting injured. So it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, he's got to do a better job of protecting himself.
Yep.
It's so unfortunate.
And some of the injuries are freak injuries. Like some of them are like the Dallas one. He kind of just gets rolled up from behind on a sack like that. The Seattle one, it's a freak injury. His arm gets stuck, and yeah, it was gross. But some of them are freak injuries. But again, when you are running and you put yourself in these kind of positions, you are more susceptible to these freak injuries. So I think he does need to be a little bit more cautious with that. But again, it's tough to do. It's tough to find that balance because he's been doing this his entire life, and he's so damn good at it. So it's pretty tough.
And you brought up the middle of the field zone, kind of those chunk plays that he was eating up last year at a healthy amount, not doing it as much this year. I think a lot of that has to do with OZ not being back on the roster. Like OZ was that third down kind of receiver that just got you the downfield just a little bit more to put you in a scoring position. That helped him out a lot, and I think that that's the one position, as much as we have been missing Terry, the deep downfield, which I feel like was one of the things last season that got him rolling into rhythm in games, was after the big play happened, things sped up. He was in his rhythm. We started doing really well. This year, those big plays have been few and far between because Terry hasn't been there. But I would argue that that third down kind of receiver, that OZ type, we've been struggling to kind of find that guy. As much as Debo's been here and been useful for us, just kind of that receiver to move the chains has been really hard and difficult to kind of find this season. Am I wrong?
They've missed that kind of inside slot, sort of smaller receiver that they had last year. And Jamison Crowder was another guy that kind of stepped up in those moments.
Yep.
I always think of one of my favorite throws of his last year was the game winner to Jamison Crowder against the Eagles. That's one of the best throws that he's made because, again, it's in the middle of the field. You have to time it absolutely perfectly, and it's to a guy like Jamison Crowder. So those two and Zach Ertz were the guys that he trusted the absolute most on third and fourth downs in those scenarios. You only have Zach Ertz left. And Zach Ertz has still been very good this year, but it's been a bit of a decline as well. It's just kind of natural. That's what's going to happen. So they have not had that guy in the middle to kind of really open some stuff up. You would hope that maybe Luke or Jalen Lane kind of stepped up, but that's not really their game. Especially Luke, I think he's better on the outside. Same with Terry. It's not really his game. Debo, it is a little bit, but they used him a lot more in kind of this gadget role, which has been good. It's been successful. So they just didn't really have that kind of guy, like you said.
Yeah.
The tempo has definitely been off as well. The tempo of the offense, going three and outs and not being able to hurry up to the ball like we were doing a lot of last year and sometimes even early this year. That was kind of our weapon, was moving at a quick pace. And if we're not getting anything done, you could tell that it's just flat. And the defense is kind of just sitting there with their fangs out ready to eat. So.
And the aggressiveness on fourth down, you could make an argument too, Nick.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot that plays into it. They were, I talked about this a lot, and a lot of people talked about, luck and regression coming into the season. And that's the point that I kind of, wanted to talk about was the third and fourth down regression. It was just not sustainable. Like what they were doing on fourth down was just not sustainable, but they kept putting themselves in positions on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 to be in a position to go for it. They're not really doing that this year. Right. They're not really in those third and shorts, those fourth and shorts. So you see a lot of plays where, you're going to have a 7-step drop back and kind of hope the offensive line can hold up. So it's just nothing's really worked right now. It just hasn't at all. And it's been a disaster, every part of it.
It absolutely has been. My next question for you: why do you hate Jaden Daniels? I know, I'm just kidding. But
I need to bring up. Hold on.
Now he's gonna have to show proof now. There we go. Okay.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Why don't you have the classic jersey?
My mother-in-law bought that for me, so I didn't have a choice.
Okay.
I also have a Jaden Daniels onesie for my soon-to-be son. So
there you go.
I'm not a Jaden Daniels hater.
Congrats.
Thank you,
my man. Congratulations as always, Nick. I know you're very excited. About
can't wait.
Man.
Terrified, but excited.
don't be terrified. You'll be just fine. But like you see Emmanuel Forbes pop off for the Rams. I hate to bring this more in the negative light. But, is that just as simply as they have better positions at defensive end and creating pressure where Emmanuel Forbes is eating? What is the disconnect with being on Washington last season and being on another team this year that guys are performing better?
He's in a better defense that suits his skills.
Okay.
This Dan Quinn defense did not suit his skills at all. Remember, this was a Rivera pick where they wanted to play more kind of off zone, and that's where he thrived. That's where he was at his best, playing off, being able to read and react. You ask him, everyone talks about his frame, but you ask him to try to play press man, it's just not going to work. And we saw that last year. So he's just in a much better system. The Rams play a lot of too high stuff, so he's in a better spot to just kind of sit off the ball and kind of read and react. And so that's all I would attribute that to. It's just he was never going to fit in this Dan Quinn defense.
I agree with you. I wish him all the best, man, for real.
Yep. He got a lot of shit, like he did, and so it's cool to see him kind of bounce back. I wish it was with us, but it just was never really going to work out.
Yeah, for somebody that takes a lot of crap like yourself, I could see why.
I love it when guys bounce back from it.
Last question I have for you though, going to Spain, going to Madrid. What is your confidence level like? I know that it's hard to have any positive feeling about this team heading into this week. Miami has hit their stride the past 2 weeks, just absolutely taking belt to ass to the Bills. But what is your feeling going into this game? Are you going to give us some hope?
Me giving hope? There's no shot. No, I do think that you see a better defense. I mean, I know that's not saying much considering it's been historically bad these last 3 games, but yeah. I think you see a more competent defense. It's tough that they're flying to Madrid and have to make all these changes and stuff. So I think that they will be better. And I'm hoping for a much closer game. Like that's been probably these games have been over by like the end of the first quarter, basically.
Yeah.
Other than the Chiefs game, like it's just been there's been nothing to really look forward to, nothing to kind of evaluate because the games are just over instantly. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a closer game. I don't necessarily think that they're going to win, but I do expect a much closer game.
And I wouldn't be mad to see Mike McDaniel link back up with Dan Quinn in the future, given their history together. That would be, I think that's like a Tom Sula type of hire that you could get in here that really help out a positional unit or even help with play calling down the line. Nick, before you get out of here, if you'd just like to plug your social media handle, sir.
It's just at PFF_Nick, AKRIDGE. That's where I post everything. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, everyone's favorite punching bag, Mr. Nick Akridge
Yep.
from Pro Football Focus. I appreciate your
Yep,
time,
that's
man.
me.
It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Have a
Take
good
it
week,
easy,
brother.
guys.
All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Nick Akridge. I know, Goody, if you got to get out of here too, brother, do your thing. Because I know you said that you're going to go out and get a Christmas tree tonight, so I don't want to hold you up too much. I don't want to get you in trouble with the old lady.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good. Thank you, though.
Just do me a favor. Turn up your camera a little bit so we can see your face.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, man. I didn't want to put you on blast with it. But to wrap this up, we're going to answer fan questions, boys, and wanted to say some things from the YouTube comments. Deluxe says, level of competence has been the phrase I've been hunting for. His next question was, why did they stop pulling when they switched from Coleman to Paul? Do you have any comment on that?
I didn't notice that, to be honest. I didn't notice that they stopped pulling. What I did notice, which got me very excited, in the beginning of that game, the offense came out in very heavy personnel. And I thought that they were going to kind of impose that as their identity for the game, at least. But again, they got away from it too soon. And that's when things started to get out of control a little bit. But
Yeah,
I didn't
not to
the
their
difference.
fault. Not to their fault. Yeah, the score was just getting away.
Yeah, no, it just happened in a flash. But yeah, I did not notice the pulling with Coleman versus Paul. Or maybe you have more than that.
I did notice it. I have noticed it the past couple weeks. And what I would say, Deluxe, is it's the simple answer is probably the best one, and that being that Coleman is just a little bit more athletic than Chris Paul is, where Chris Paul's strengths are much more north and south, not very much of east and west. Similar, like Laramie Tunsil's an east and west kind of guy, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense. If you have Coleman in there, you can be using that left side to be able to get outside, but maybe that takes Chris Paul out of his strengths. I'm not sure. I'm not at practice, so I haven't been able to see how he looks in those sort of scenarios, but I'm imagining that they're trying to do the best with what they have up front right now, and they think that being able to bulldoze with Chris Paul is going to be more beneficial to the offensive line in overall. So I would say that's probably the reason why. Because it's not like Cliff Kingsbury and company are sitting there saying, I don't think that we're going to be able to do it. Let's just not do it. I think it's much more of that. This is what we know will work, and let's go with it, if that makes sense. Now the next one was from Broski Bear. He said, need to give these young quarterbacks 3 to 4 seasons before you really know what you have. It's just how it is. I agree with you there. Mike Reed, come on, man. He said, Nick, take off your shirt. He said, crap, this is public. My bad. So funny man Reed. Broski Baird then says Drake May is a superhero. I will say that offensive unit is overall playing very well. Josh McDaniels deserves a lot of credit. Like he just is a very good OC, and that's where he needs to stay at, right? Like
New England looks really good. Drake May looks good as you would expect. He's a top pick, and they definitely look really nice right now.
Absolutely, and I think they have kind of a weaker schedule. So if you gave that same credit to Jaden Daniels last season, you have to give it to Drake May as well. He's playing good football right now. Same with Caleb Williams. He said, let's face it, Redskins caught lightning in a bottle last season. They need younger, faster wide receivers, and a running game would be great as well. Yeah, and that's crazy. That's what the crazy thing is, Broski, is that the O-line has been the healthiest unit on the team, and they still can't mortgage a running game. And honestly, I can't put them at all that much fault because these games are getting out of whack so early. I mean, even dating back to week 2 against Green Bay, it was a not even a foot race after that. It was a drag race, and we were sitting there in a beat up station wagon. Like it, so it's hard to be able to say that they haven't been able to run the ball well because the offensive line's not doing their job. Because at the same point, we've been getting in these massive deficits. I call them pyro firefighters because of these early in these games, they put themselves in a hole and they have to fight their way back. And now they're not playing the game that they want to play in. And we've known from the beginning of the season that the running game is what really took this offense off early on in the season. And so if you're getting down early, you're taking yourself out of that. You're just liquidating clock at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too about this team this year. Last year, there was very, very little times where you felt this team doesn't have a chance to pull this out. No matter what happened in any of those games, at least after the first 2 or 3 games of the season where you kind of really felt like, oh, wow, we got something going on here. For the rest of the season, there was never a time when you're in a game and, whether you're losing, you're turning the ball over, you never felt like you were out of the game, and it proved. They came down and pulled out some wins in some very, very small areas, but you don't see that this year. Once the game gets out of control, then you just kind of, you don't want to say that the team's given up because you can't be sure of that, and I doubt it. But it just feels like the air is completely taken out of the team. So
you're absolutely right. The one thing you could have taken away from last season's team is that they did not give up. I think Arch actually asked us the question, like, there was one thing you could take away from the first season under Dan Quinn, what would it be? And I said then, it was like that they don't quit. They literally fought to the end whistle in every game. And this year it's the complete opposite. Like, this is the first time that we've seen them quit on the field. Like, and that's what the most debilitating thing is, like, that kind of confidence, that swagger, that mojo Austin Powers, like, where they've lost it, and it's just like having to get those bearings back under them. And without the leaders on your team to kind of help you steer in that direction, because Dan Quinn said this in his presser, Goody, he said this, he was like, guys are just not in the, or simply guys were not in the right spots, I think is what he said. And I made the comment on the YouTube channel, I was like, but coach, it's not that just guys aren't in the right spots. It's that, like, we are playing lost and have no confidence in where we are going right now. Like, there is no destination in sight to where we get this thing back on track. Like, everything is completely awry. Everyone's running around with their hair on fire in different directions, not knowing what's going to go on. It's complete chaos. And I think Dan Quinn's right by saying that we just need a little bit more of the structure to keep things intact, because right now it's very chaotic the way that they've played the last couple weeks, and that's not what you want as a defense. You want to bring chaos to the offense. You don't want your own defense out there like 11 blind mice.
Imposed. Yeah. You're
absolutely right. Now, the next question from the Colonel, he asks, besides injuries, what is your biggest disappointment of the season? Personally, mine was giving up 3 draft picks for Marshawn Lattimore, especially given his abysmal performance this year, followed closely by Terry's enormous contract and his total lack of participation this year. Oh, it hit me right in the feels, Colonel.
So yeah, I think the biggest disappointment aside from injuries is going to have to be the lack of adjustment making, more or less what we just kind of spoke about in terms of the fight. We're seeing a lot more of the team ragging on each other instead of kind of coming together and opposing it against the opposite. So I would say the biggest disappointment would be like the fight in these games. It's just not there, and that's kind of something I got accustomed to in a quick, football season last year. But yeah, I would have to say that would be the biggest disappointment.
The biggest disappointment is just a lack of competitiveness, really, because coming off of last season, Colonel, you're looking at it saying, okay, well, this is the next step for this football team, that they're able to compete with everybody, because everyone's saying how weak of a schedule it was. Your confidence is running high. You feel really good about your draft class, the free agent class, the guys that you brought in via trade. You're saying, okay, now we can compete with some top-tier units, right? But then you have those top-tier units that you're going against during the season, and you're boat raced. And look, you can make you can make the argument about the injuries, and I get it. I do believe that is an excuse overall. But the lack of competitiveness has been a huge disappointment throughout these games from beginning to end. Just literally just getting into the boxing ring and not being able to get a punch in to start the match for the first 5 minutes, you're just getting your ass kicked. And not once do you come back and able to get one back. It's just like you're just gone, dude. And the lack of competitiveness is definitely the biggest disappointment overall. And because I'll be honest with you, because Dan Quinn said when he first got hired that what he likes to do is put players in positions to succeed. And I really felt that some guys, especially defensively, were not being used in their correct spots. I can understand what you're saying about Terry. I know people are putting blame on Terry for not participating in his hamstring for holding out. I don't feel the same way. It's beating a dead horse at this point, but I put that blame on AP because my whole thing over the summer was you don't have time this season to start off slow. So if you want to play these games with Terry, you're flirting with disaster in starting slow and having to crawl yourself out of a hole with a very hard schedule this season. I don't like being right in this case. I hate being right in this case. But it's the reality of the situation that, honestly, the vibes all went off the rails with the Terry situation. And honestly, I don't put that on Terry. I don't.
It was like having sorry to cut you off. It was like
you're
having one of those Washington kind of just regular off seasons where there's always something spinning, something in the headlines besides football. And this was for years and years and years. We had got accustomed to this, getting the breath of fresh air of, having a new head coach, new GM, star quarterback. Everybody's going into this offseason thinking like, man, we saw where we just got to. All we have to do is this, that, and the third, and we're going to be able to kind of take it to that next level. And then, lo and behold, the holdout with Terry McLaurin, and then that becomes the talk of the summer. Not only is it just from outside, even within, Cliff even said it himself, like, I need my guys on the field. So that holdout, man, it was just very Washington-like, but I do have a lot more confidence that we can persevere from it.
Yeah, and, it sucks just to see where they are right now, man. And I know that people are going to point blame at Terry, and I get it. It's just like after last season, even though you lost in the NFC Championship game, it ended on a positive. The fact that you won 2 playoff games, you haven't done that in almost 20 years. Like that's a positive. And to start out the summer with a growing negative, week by week by week, Terry opts out to be traded. It just created this kind of negative spin on things. And it's like after last year, building on that positive, you don't want to go into the next year on something that's completely avoidable, creating the negative. Because it's bad juju. It's not, you want to come into this season happy, ready to go, everyone on the same page, picking up where you left off. And it just felt like from the get-go that they weren't on the same page. And that's the most disappointing thing. It's just negative coming into the season and the lack of competitiveness overall because they were not in a position to start off slow, and we're seeing that now. Now the next question from the Colonel Goody. Did Treylon Burks show you anything against Detroit? I know he caught a few passes, but were they noteworthy? Is he a potential hidden gem for us, or is it just too early to determine after a single game?
Yeah, so I like Treylon Burks. I like that they went out and got him. Obviously early, top pick in the draft, had to deal with injuries, was stuck in Tennessee, for early of his career. But seeing him on the field, seeing him make plays, he's got youth. This team doesn't really have much figured out in terms of their depth on their roster. So as much talent as you can acquire, the better. But I definitely liked what I saw out of Treylon Burks. In terms of, I wouldn't say he's necessarily a hidden gem, but I'll take what we got. Let's let him finish out the season, healthy, willingly, and let's see what we got. Because now when we go into the offseason, like we kind of spoke about earlier, you're really trying to look at this roster in a way that, you don't want to think with the mindset of I don't want to make any mistakes because then you'll tend to make mistakes. But you want to be able to make sure like what you have, you want to know what you have, so you know what you have to go get. By having him on the roster and playing out the rest of the season, we get to get a good glimpse of it. And he's going to get a lot of burn, and he's going to grow a lot more confident in this offense as we go forward.
Yeah, in life, Colonel, all you can ask for is a stage to be able to showcase your skills, right? And that's what Burks had against the Lions, and he showed up. He caught the ball when it was thrown to him. He showed very good hands. He has a great skill set for what Washington honestly needs right now. Ever since they lost Noah Brown, they kind of missed that big-bodied receiver that could help you out in the middle passing game, and that's what Treylon Burks kind of helped you with. But the cherry on top was his deep ball. And helping with that is what, like, you weren't really expecting that with Treylon Burks. You were more expecting the possession kind of wide receiver, and he came in with that deep ball, and that's what Washington has been sorely missing these past couple weeks. So I don't hidden gem. I think it's a low risk, high reward type of situation for Washington. It was smart given their situation, and they did a good job. The only issue with Treylon Burks really overall is his lack of overall top end speed and his injury history. That's one of the reasons why it fizzled out in Tennessee. He wasn't able to stay on the field consistently, and now he's out this game with his finger. And so it's just adding more fuel to the fire of the injury eruption that's happened on Washington, that they just can't yield the same unit every single week. There's
there's something there's something in the water. There's something in the water. And it's unfortunate, but hopefully we get that water filtrated, and we can bring this thing back with a lot more health, because everybody, it's not targeting anybody. It's just like anybody that walks across this part of the locker room or the training facility, like, you're next. But it is what it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, the next question from the Colonel. New England Patriots head coach Todd Vrabel, Mike Vrabel, is being praised for his genius clock management skills the past several games, including one where Drake May did a quarterback sneak short of the goal line purposely to take more time off the clock and not allow the opposing team to get the ball again. Ron Rivera has notoriously challenged for his lack of clock management skills, and frankly, DQ is not far behind him. How do you teach this skill to a coaching staff?
Teaching that skill to a coaching staff. I think the best way to do it would be to have somebody on your staff aware of that specifically. I think, especially in Washington right now, the amount of things that need to be addressed, I'm sure the hardest, the least important thing, which it's hard to say, is clock management, right? Everybody is on their toes with the defense and the offense, how everything's moving. So if it's not perfect, they're pressing a lot. In terms of clock management, I would say we probably have fallen off with that. DQ has kind of struggled with that this season.
Yeah.
But again, there's a lot of questionable things that DQ has done this season. Considering last year our fourth down, percentage conversion was through the roof. There's some times, and this is just for me, but there's times where I would have much preferred taking the points in this season early on, some of these games, instead of trying to go for fourth, knowing that the offense is not the same as what it was. I guess it was a pride thing, maybe, just trying to oppose the other team, saying, hey, just because you got us here, don't think we're going to just kick it away or try to go for the field goal. But in terms of clock management, how to teach that to a team, to a coaching staff, I would just have somebody address it, make that their main focus.
I'm not going to say it's necessarily teaching. It's just being aware of the way things are. Like if your defense is not able to stop anybody for punt, to get any stop whatsoever, barring a turnover, you have to be cognizant of how much time is left, and that should be your number one MO. Is, of course, you want to get the points. That's the most important, is just get the points to get the lead. But you also have to be cognizant of the time left. You cannot allow, I think it was Pat Mahomes, I forget who it was, I think it was Dallas, where we scored the touchdown and we gave them 40 seconds left in the half, and we luckily got an interception, I think by Frankie or somebody heading in, or it was it was a turnover on downs.
During the Dallas game, we scored early with time left, and they came down the field with like 30-something seconds and scored a touchdown.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
Then that's exactly what I'm speaking to, is like, you have to be cognizant of that. And I think Vrabel did a very good job in this past game where they had a similar situation, and they had Travion Henderson run the football, and he just got down and knelt at the one on like second down. Like, they were not afraid of saying we're going to get these points. It doesn't matter one way or another, but we're liquidating this clock to not allow you to go get more points. I think there's a avenue of cojones needed to be able to make those kind of calls, and obviously Mike Vrabel does not lack those whatsoever, and I'm not saying Dan Quinn does either, but it's just awareness of what is happening. The play clock is 40 seconds, right? If you take the 3 times 40, right, that's how much time is going to get taken off. So a minute 40 or a minute 60, so 2 minutes is off for every 3 plays. So you imagine that if there's 3 minutes left and we're on the inside the 10-yard line, goal to go, you run the football, try to get the points, of course, but you stay in bounds, and I think that's one awareness thing that this team has lacked overall, and just being able to be aware of when to do things like that. And I'm not gonna say it's teaching. I think it's just honestly it's just awareness. But at this point, I think they've been so adamant about just getting points because of how bad the defense has been that everything else has been overshadowed. Which is
the situational awareness has definitely taken a back seat.
Yes. Now the next question in the Discord. This is Jeff Miles. We are in, quote, fight for your job mode. Obviously, everyone should still be fighting to win, but which players do you think should be putting in some extra effort these last 7 games, whether it's for an extension or just to be on an NFL roster?
Who needs to be putting in the extra work? I guess I could, I don't want to really pick on anybody, but I guess you could say on the defensive line, while he's had a balanced season, I would say Jer'Zhan Newton. Johnny Newton could definitely kind of take this time to excel. He did come into the league with injuries. He got to play through them, work through them. This is kind of his first healthy season. But you kind of want to see more disruption from him, being that he was such a high. He was a second-round pick, but he was a high pick. He could have gotten the first. But you kind of just want to see a little bit more of him popping out on the screen, I think, from my perspective.
Yeah, especially with Daron Payne missing this game, this would be fantastic for Johnny Newton to get involved more and really showcase himself, because there have been flashes. Just needs to be more consistent overall. I know some accounts had posted some plays of Johnny Newton falling over, and I begged the question if he was tripped by a body when that happened, because I think that's not the same thing, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna.
Is he an undersized defensive lineman?
Yes, he's smaller in stature, but the way that he was used in college, Goody, is that he was used at the end. He was used at wide defensive end. He was used at nose tackle. Used all over, but his skill set is just he has such good hands, powerful, quick hands that get off the line of scrimmage, that it's kind of like you could, like in this sort of situation, like we've been saying, well, with the loss of the defensive ends, why don't you use Johnny Newton more as an edge rusher? Why don't you use Daron Payne more as an edge rusher if that's what you're lacking in at times, and being able to set the edge in the run game? And that's one of those things that goes back to the DC and how things are implemented, where just like with the offensive coordinator, I was talking about the wide receivers of using more tight ends. Well, use what you do have to maximize the situation and put guys in position to succeed. And that's one of those areas where Johnny Newton has the skill set to be able to play anywhere on that defensive line, but he hasn't really been utilized in that sort of way in a big amount, if that makes sense.
Copy.
I could give you a laundry list of players that really need to, these last 7 games, put their foot on the gas pedal. To be frank with you, in particular, I think Jalen Lane is one that needs to really step up. And this is like, as a rookie wide receiver that got added to a team with Terry McLaurin, that got added to a team with Deebo Samuel, that loses Luke McCaffrey in the latter and Noah Brown. Like, this is your real big stage to be able to say, this is what I can do to provide. And it's good that you got the long pass, but you need to really maximize this weekend in these last 7 games. You really need to showcase what you are, because there aren't a lot of positives right now. And it'll go a long way to showcase to this coaching staff, to this front office, what you could do if you do maximize and show that you have the hands to be able to play at this level, because a lot of the fan base is questioning it, not me in particular. But I just think that that's somebody that really needs to step up. Quan Martin is another one. Quan Martin, Frankie Louvu, those guys, it's been really bad. And it's really unfortunate, because that aggressiveness has been taken away from them. And honestly, you can't take the blame away from them for that. But they're definitely a need to step up. And I don't want to expect more out of Bobby. I think Bobby is who Bobby is. They knew that who he
Yeah.
was coming in, you know?
Yeah.
And
I mean, as a, he is definitely in coverage, not going to be able to keep up with the pace of that stuff. But you see him down in and down out, still sideline to sideline making tackles consistently, game in and game out. So for the Bobby crowd that says he should be kind of shipped off, I mean, you got to be careful what you're wishing for, because he's definitely been effective.
I don't think he should be shipped off, Goody. I think that he should be utilized more as a rusher at this point. Like, he has shown this season to be so good at being able to create pressure on the quarterback. And if you don't have that edge rushing ability to be able to help things out for your DBs, then send extra guys, because you need to speed things up. Things are being way too quick, way too easy for them. I'm not going to go on this tangent again, but it's just one of those things where Frankie and Bobby have really been productive in that scenario, and that needs to be pressed on if you're going to improve overall defensively. Getting to the quarterback really covers up a lot of issues for a defense, and that's should be the number one aspect that Dan Quinn is looking to be able to do. And you have two remedies already there that are healthy, and need to really showcase what they can do, and just put them in that position to succeed. The pieces are there.
That was one of my biggest surprises about Bobby Wagner last year. Was I'd never thought or imagined him being so effective at getting to the quarterback. From his career, I always looked at him as just a solid linebacker that was smart, controlling the defense, getting guys in position and making plays. But seeing him get to the quarterback last year was just like, oh, wow,
Yep, and that's where he should be utilized more. Now, the last question we have for this show is by Deluxe. Is this season a blessing in disguise? You learn the most when facing adversity. It's easy when things go right, but the best coaching or managing happens when things are tough. We may have learned that one coach wasn't up to the challenge. What are some other pros to the type of season that the team is having? Silver linings.
Silver linings. I mean, I think in life and anything that you do, and it's not going your way, the best, and this is my opinion, the best thing to do is have a checkup from the neck up. You look in the mirror and you just kind of be honest with yourself first. Once you're able to be honest with yourself first, then you can go ahead and address these things that just become apparent now as to what needs to be addressed. And it starts with you. So I feel like having a season like this for each and every one of those guys in the locker room, they all know what their standard is. They know what the sites were for. They have to be able to sit there and say, hey, there's nowhere to point blame yet. I have to be honest with myself. I have to be better. Just challenge yourself first. And then with that, you can go into something and really excel. You can come back, you can bounce back. And that's what I think will be the blessing in disguise for this season, is for guys to realize, like, hey, we came shooting out of a cannonball last year, and now we just don't even, move right now. So just challenge yourself, check up from the neck up. I think everybody could be a little bit more accountable themselves without kind of the cliche. But you could definitely learn a lot from not having success by being honest with yourself first.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to the silver lining. I hate to butcher this, but Mariota said in his presser that maybe we're not who we thought we are, and he's honestly right about that. And I'm not trying to butcher this, but I'm pretty sure this is how the Rocky series goes. We were like the first Rocky last season. We come through, we do some amazing things. I think the second Rocky is when he gets his ass kicked, when he's like the one signing the autographs, doing all the getting into the spotlight, not taking it seriously, where his opponent's training really hard for this matchup. He gets his ass kicked. And then Rocky's the one that comes back, works his ass off, and is able to do it. So I would say that third Rocky aspect is the silver lining to this, where we maybe came into the season thinking things were going to be easier than they were. And coming into next season as a team saying, like, we're going to work our ass off, so that's not the case. Like, we cannot have this same type of season last season, regardless of the injuries. I don't like that feeling. I don't like crap being pushed into my mouth on a weekly freaking basis. I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to go down lying on my back again. And I think that's probably a silver lining from this season, is that this is just something you don't want to go back to. And that's, I think, one thing that everyone says it, but you have to hate losing more than you love winning. And when you get to that aspect is when you really start to win really a lot. And I think that's where the silver lining could be for this season, where it's just I hate that. I don't want to go back to it. And so I want to work my butt off so that doesn't ever be the case ever again.
No, I hear you 100%.
All right, boys. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Goody, you're the freaking man. I can't thank you enough, man. Please apologize to your old lady for keeping you away from going Christmas tree shopping. I am so sorry.
No, you're good, dude. Don't worry about it.
All right. For real, tell her I said I'm sorry. But I really appreciate you doing this for us because you honestly add some valuable insight, consistent and competent. I really appreciate you for contributing to this show, man. And you've been a blessing coming on here to help me out a little bit so everyone doesn't have to listen to my voice the entire time. I know the listeners are appreciative of that as well. But that's going to wrap us up for this episode, boys. We'll have our Miami pregame on Friday night. If you're over in Madrid, have fun. Enjoy it. Don't spend too much money that you're going to regret when you come back home. But enjoy your time out there. Fantastic people, fantastic vibes. Enjoy the game. Just be safe and just don't go in with a heavy head. Keep that chin up, all right? All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
Goody.
And we'll see you guys again on Friday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your